Chris Fowler joining us from, I assume, Northern California here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Chris?
Great, Rich. Yeah, we're in San Jose, headed up to Napa for a couple of days of R&R. And rain is one of the R's, I think, but that's okay. And then it's off to Australia. But, feeling good somehow after all this.
I mean, how surprised were you by the final result last night, Chris?
Stunned. Yeah, I mean, I think Kirk and I both thought Clemson was going to win. I'm not in the prediction business, but you listen to both sides, you feel the vibe, and I felt very good about Clemson's chances on the field throughout the week, but never that. I never thought I'd see anybody, I use the word eviscerate. I don't know why it came to mind, but their defense got shredded like you'd never think you'd see a Saban defense get shredded at Alabama. And Clemson doesn't throttle back, and Alabama tapped out. So, stunned, yeah.
Yeah, and sort of like the runny nose of a team that's not performing well other than penalties. Pre-snap penalties are the ones that really is a killer. Turnovers is one, and then red zone failures is another, and that's essentially what we saw out of Alabama last night. That was stunning too, but I guess you have to tip your cap to the Clemson defense, which is going to send a ton of kids to the next level too.
Yeah, and Brent Venables, who earns all of the $2 million that he makes as a coordinator. That's a fortune in college football for a DC, but he probably is worth double that. Great game plan. They were ready for everything. They confused Tua. The very first pick six, he was confused. And although he responded throughout the night, they were able to affect him much better than Alabama could affect Trevor Lawrence, who showed his toughness. I mean, you're right. I said last night, I cannot believe the kid is 19.
And he's going to be
the way he looks and plays, the way he acts. He's not arrogant at all either. He's been, since he's 14 years old, he was 6'4", as a freshman in high school, supplanting a senior at a very high level of high school football in Georgia. Played 4 years, broke Deshaun Watson's state record. So all of this is sort of expected by guys who have that kind of success as a young age, but he's not cocky at all. Really well-grounded, humble kid. I don't know how you stay humble when you're that talented, and everybody's talking about the NFL when you're 19, but he's got 2 more years in college, Rich, so you can wait. Those of us who cover this sport, we got 2 more years to watch number 16 slinging around.
And he's going to be 19 when the season opens. He won't be 20 till October. So let's stick with this a little bit longer, Chris. What's the backstory behind him getting the gig this year prior to Syracuse? Was it born out of something they saw on film? Was it something that they were dealing with Bryant that they kept in house? I mean, how did that ascension begin?
One, they saw what happened against Alabama a year ago when they couldn't complete a pass downfield. They didn't have a single completion beyond 15 yards. Bryant's a tough quarterback. I like Kelly Bryant. He's got a skill set, but it's just not Lawrence's, and he can't stretch the field and distribute the ball. So the playmakers they have out there were not being utilized. Dabo knew that, I think, at the end of last season. Lawrence arrived in the spring. I did their spring game, and I wanted to see what the hype was about. And it took about 3 throws in the pregame warm-up to go, okay, I get it. And the presence that he had after 4 games in the season, the offense was not dynamic enough. Lawrence had been in there as a kind of a change-of-pace quarterback for the first 4 games, but from Game 5 on, when they started him, it was very clear. He got knocked out of the Syracuse game, and Chase Price had to rescue him late. But then he got back in the lineup, I mean, it was 20-point wins throughout the rest of the season with this kid. And he's just a rare human to be able to be that poised, that mentally good at that position, to go along with the fact that he's 6'5" and has an NFL arm.
Yeah, and then what is he like? I know you gave voice to this a couple minutes ago, but let's dive deeper. When you see him, when you meet him, when you talk to him, when you look him in the eye.
When a guy says, football is not the most important thing in my life, and football doesn't define me, you always kind of raise your eyebrow because their identities are so firmly entrenched in the sport of football since they're about 5-6 years old. So I was skeptical, but I really believe that with him. He's a guy with deep faith, which a lot of players are, and sometimes that takes shape in different ways. But with him, I think it gives him a calm and a belief that the scoreboard is not the be-all, end-all. When you have that, maybe you can play more relaxed and more calm. Again, maybe he's got his moments where he comes off real cocky and arrogant. I haven't seen it in the times I've interacted with him, and his teammates haven't seen it, and his coaches. He was raised beautifully. I don't know. I just think you get – I hate the word once in a generation because we're seeing more and more of these guys.
Right.
But I think even among the precocious kind of prodigies we now see who make an impact early in college football, I still think he's in a different league. I mean, Tua was great, but this guy, I think, showed last night he's right there with him in a lot of ways. Maybe has a better skill set.
Yeah, I mean, well, certainly in terms of what the NFL looks for, you say 6'5", 6'6", or whatever it is. I mean, that's it. I mean, somebody who can sling it, who can see over the defense, who can read a defense, who can play up top. I mean, you've seen what Nick Foles was able to do with Alshon Jeffrey against the Bears, and what he was able to do over the last few weeks. It's exactly what you're looking for at the next level.
Stand in there and take hits.
Yeah.
He delivered the ball knowing he's going to get hit, and Big Bad Bama has made a lot of quarterbacks gun-shy. There's a song by Ministry that you probably don't listen to, but it's a very aggressive metal song. Their favorite weapon is the look in your eye, and that's Bama. And many opponents are defeated or way behind when the game starts, just mentally. For a kid who's that inexperienced to stand in there and show that kind of toughness and act like it's no big deal, it's a big deal.
So you don't think I'm an aggressive metal guy, Chris? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if are you a Ministry fan from the 80s?
No, I'm not. I don't think so.
There's an album with an awful title. It's called The Land of Rape and Honey. I mean, it's very aggressive metal. But anyway, that's a line from the song.
I had not heard that one. And it's interesting, too, with Trevor Lawrence, Chris, is he's not going to have to do it himself. I just had Keenan Allen of the Chargers on before you, and I asked him, what about that kid last night? And I thought that would just automatically mean he would talk about Trevor Lawrence. And instead, he talked about Justin Ross. He's like, that's number 8, right? I'm like, no. We're talking about the quarterback. These kids, it's unbelievable. It's now wide receiver U. I know we've heard about DBU and linebacker U for, Miami and Penn State. But Clemson is wide receiver U right now. Would you not agree?
Yeah, more guys drafted in the last 4 years. I think 7 guys drafted. And, I mean, obviously Ross, he's got, again, 2 more years of college before he's draft eligible, just like Lawrence. But he'd be a high pick. I mean, what is his catch radius? My goodness. I mean, and the thing is, too, he was an Alabama top recruit. The lack of continuity on their staff, guys coming and going that Saban's had to deal with, was a factor in his recruitment. And he just connected with Clemson and found a home there. And he made the Tide pay. And it was a show. And we've known that Ross is talented. He's come on. But they say he was more advanced when he arrived at campus in receiver skills than Sammy Watkins. And that's a pretty high bar. And Justin's a guy that wanted to quit football every day. There's a good story written by The Athletic about his lack of passion for the sport when he was a high school freshman. He wanted to quit. He liked hoops better. He was promoted because he was so talented, and all his buddies were on the JV, and he wasn't loving the sport. And his mom said, no, you're not quitting. And his coach basically locked him in the office and said, you're not getting out of here until you agree to use the gifts you have. And we saw last night there was wisdom in not letting him quit the sport, because he's going to get paid a lot for a long time. But in the meantime, he's going to make a lot of plays in college.
Chris Fowler here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's spend a few minutes before we send you to Napa and Australia and parts beyond on what this means. Is Clemson that much better than Alabama, or is it the proverbial play it 10 more times, you might get a different result, Chris?
They're not 4 touchdowns better. I mean, stats don't mean a lot. When you look at the game, though, Bama controlled the clock. The yards were very close. It was really just situational football. You pointed out the crazy decision. That was the worst conceived fake I've ever seen in design and execution. I mean, you got to call it off. I mean, you're going to have a kicker as a lead blocker for a quarterback. You got a quarterback holder. If you're going to run a fake, shouldn't he throw it? You're going to follow a kicker up into the hole against Christian Wilkins and company. So they made some crazy decisions because I think there was some panic, and I think that they moved the ball. The key for me, Rich, was that possession early in the third quarter. They were down 15. You figured they're going to make a push. They're definitely going to make a run that Clemson's going to have to withstand. They had the ball for 5 minutes, and they came up empty. So red zone, third down, all the situational stuff that decides a lot of games when high-level teams collide. Bama lost in all those categories: turnovers, shock plays, penalties, you name it. It's a weird thing. You think of a blizzard of big plays. They had a false start down there on the goal line when they were trying to run the Wildcat and got cute. set them back, settle for 3. That's a 4-point play right there. There's 100 ways they could have got the ball the final yard into the end zone, and they didn't. And I thought that was a real momentum shift. And Clemson went on a 31-point run right after that. So, no, they're not 4 touchdowns better, but they played light years better in that game.
Well, and you guys discussed it last night, and it's been all over the place in the last 24 hours, too. Since 2015, Clemson and Alabama have the same number of national championships and the same win-loss record of 55-4. So is it these two schools and programs and then everybody else now, Chris?
It has been. I mean, they're 106-4 against all others in that span. That's mind-blowing, okay? And they show no signs of slowing down. Dabo Swinney told me that Clemson's better next year. Coaches say that and fans get skeptical. What are they going to say? We're going to be worse? Well, yeah, a lot of coaches do admit that this is the year. There are going to be huge holes the following year. Dabo's an upbeat guy, but that's not just spin. You look at the offense. They're all freshmen and sophomores. You lose Renfro and Trevion Thompson, but every other guy who touched the ball is back for 1 year, sometimes 2 years. Defense, yeah, they got some studs that are going. There's going to be some big holes to fill on that defensive front, and they'll lose a couple guys probably early to the draft, but they got so much talent in the pipeline. They may be outscoring people, more shootouts than defensive stops, but they're going to be hard to beat. And Bama's going to bounce back. I mean, you said Tua's there, and they've got tremendous talent. I just think this is the kind of loss that Saban's never taken. So what are the off-season repercussions? What are the echoes of that? The longtime bully in this sport got smacked around like none of us thought was possible. So it sets up as a pretty intriguing start to next season and a pretty long off-season, I think, in Tuscaloosa.
Well, knowing Saban as you do, what do you think the reaction's going to be? What do you think he's going to do, if anything?
Man, I don't know, because I know him a little bit, but this is a new position for him. He's lost games before. But, the other time they lost a championship game, the only time he'd lost it, Watson leads them down. They throw a touchdown with 1 second to go. They lost a split decision on points, right?
Right.
This was a knockout. This is a third-quarter knockout. So I think look, you'll always reevaluate. Mike Locksley's going to Maryland, so he'll have a new offensive coordinator. I don't think the offensive side of the ball. Listen, I mean, you can't overreact to one game. Clemson played great. They didn't exactly smother Alabama. Like I said, they made some situational great plays, but Tua's still going to light it up next year. I think you'll look at, and Alabama's got 5 stars all over the place, but I think when you get beaten like that and you come up that short and Clemson's not going anywhere, I think you do some off-season soul searching. There may be some staff situations there and some reevaluation, but that's healthy. I mean, Nick Saban's a smart guy. He's not going to be he's not going to fall apart because he lost a game. I think he was very gracious and classy in defeat last night. So
after you have some Cabernet and some great food up there in Napa, when do you get to the mic for the Australian Open? Quarters? What do you get? Is it when you get there?
No, day one.
Day one?
The tournament starts Monday in Australia, which is Sunday here? Yeah. I don't. Come on,
Chris, come on. No. Hold on. I mean, you know my situation. I'm in wild card division. I mean, I'm in the tank, man. I came up for air to watch you and Kirk yesterday. So
no, I'm going to say I thought you made it sound like I don't ease my way in. We hit the ground running.
I don't. No offense. But so you'll be there from the get go, right from the get go.
Yeah, okay, 17 years of doing it. It's fun. I mean, it's a rebirth of a new season and a new sport. I love working with that group of people. I couldn't do anything else right now. I'd collapse if it wasn't the Australian summer and the sport I love. So
okay,
but we watch the NFL down there too. They're on at weird hours, obviously, but. A part of my ritual as I start the Aussie Open is always to dial into you guys and watch the playoff games. I'll be locked in.
Okay, very good. And then I don't have to worry about you for the draft too, do I? I mean, my head's already on a swivel. The entire football operation, college and professionals, is going to descend upon Nashville now. I mean, are you part of that too?
I'm doing the presentation on the Ocho. And it's going to be a completely different approach. We're going to talk not about the players' skill sets, but sort of what their favorite colors are and what animal they'd like to be. It's going to be a different way to present the draft, but I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
The Ocho Megacast. I can't wait to see.
Yeah,
okay, good.
Don't feel threatened. You guys do just fine.
Okay, I just like everybody's coming, and I'm like, I can't take it with Chris. You used to do draft. You used to be part of the draft coverage, if I'm not mistaken,
I did,
right?
Long ago. I covered the Buffalo Bills. I did all kinds of things on the set in Bristol. Just in case the lights went out in New York, I've had a lot of roles, but yeah, it's a home game for Herb Street. He lives in Nashville, so he'll be a part of that.
That's right. So you covered the Bills. So Berman had you circling the wagons on part of that of the coverage.
He had me sent up to Buffalo. He didn't, but they chose to send me to Buffalo.
Right.
I don't know if it was the short straw or I was the rookie in the draft, but it wasn't Reuben Brown, a guard they drafted.
Yeah.
And that was the pick in the first round that year. And I rode from the hotel to the Bills headquarters in a cab, and I was talking with the cab driver, and he was talking about we need an offensive lineman, and so I said I told Berman before the pick, I said, well, the cabbie says draft O-line. Bill's got to go O-line, and so he got great mileage out of that as Chris Wood, and had fun when they drafted this guard who was not a very sexy pick. He goes, the cab driver got it right. And he knows.
Nobody circles the coverage.
Yeah,
like Chris Fowler.
There was a lot of other
I'm sure
moments of the draft that were not quite as memorable. So I yielded that. What I think is cool, in all honesty,
yes.
I mean, you guys cover the draft from a different perspective. It was always a very NFL-centric show on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. These are going to be NFL players, but they fundamentally have been college players for 3 or 4 years. We've watched them up close. We've seen the skill set. And I think it's important to have somebody that sort of knows them as people and doesn't immediately see them as commodities and assets for an organization. And I think that, now I think the way that you guys cover it and it's covered on ESPN is a little bit more balanced. I like it better because, listen, I know the salary cap and the business side of it. I get all that's important. It has to be covered because the hardcore fan wants that side too. But really, they're just people. And who knows them? What do their opponents say about them? What do their coaches and teammates say about them? I think that's important too. And so I think there's been a little bit of a shift in coverage of that event, which I've enjoyed in recent years.
Well, you just walked yourself into being asked the poll question before I let you go. Go ahead, Chris Brockman, ask the poll question to Chris Fowler.
All right, Chris, for the next 10 years, who are you buying stock of? Trevor Lawrence, Tua, or any of last year's rookie NFL quarterbacks?
Ooh, not C. A or B. I'm not a professional evaluator of talent at the next level. I don't know much about, but I mean, you look at each guy. I mean, I think both of them will be incredibly successful. I think what we saw in this playoff, when you throw Kyler Murray in there, who apparently is headed for the A's.
Yep.
But that quarterback duel in the Orange Bowl and that show last night, that's the best thing about college football is quarterback play at a young level. So I guess on a slight off of last night, you'd say Lawrence, but I mean, you'd be foolish to dump stock with Tua or downgrade him because of one night when he got fooled by a superior defensive plan.
And
he's going to be just fine.
And over Baker and what we saw from Lamar Jackson this year alone, huh?
10 years of stock?
10 years of stock?
Yeah, I believe I would.
Okay, Chris. Hey, best to Jennifer. Enjoy your
love
time.
Baker. He's had a great start, but
I know.
If you're asking me,
I did. I
agree with your people.
There you go. Chris, take care.
Love you, Rich. Take care, man.
Right back at you. That's Chris Fowler, at CB Fowler on Twitter. I follow him also on Instagram as well.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.